Welcome to another episode of Spin to Knit. This is a little bonus episode that I'm creating to join in with the Fibre Artists Spring collaboration, in which we are all going to be spinning Angora fibre. So this is Angora fibre, and it's from the Angora rabbits. It's incredibly soft. Can you see? It's so floaty. And I should pop some pictures in over the top of Angora bunnies. And so then we thought this would be perfect for a spring collaboration. So we thought Angora would be perfect for a spring collaboration because obviously spring and bunnies. And I have never ever spun Angora before, and it really does scare me because it has such a small staple length. If I pull out a staple, you can see just how short it is. It's nothing. It's a staple length of about 1 to 2 inches max. So while I would be interested to see what this spins up like just spinning it as it comes, I would assume that it wants to be spun very, very fine with a lot of twist. And yeah, if this was spun into a lace weight yarn, it would make a beautiful shawl, which I may well do one day. But for this project, as it's my first time spinning it, I'm actually going to blend this fibre and make some rolags. But first, let's talk about the pattern, because that's what we normally do first. So the pattern that I'm going to be making for this episode is the simple house slippers. This is a paid for pattern, and it's by Temple of Knits. It is a very simple design, but it's going to make some really lovely comfy slippers. And I think having the Angora in it, it's just going to make them the softest thing in the world ever. So this pattern starts with a garter stitch worked back and forth. You then join it in the round and knit like you would do the foot of a sock. Very simple. It doesn't really give us a yarn weight. It does give us a suggested yarn and a gauge, but I think there's quite a bit of leeway here, so we don't have to worry too much. I'm going to aim for a DK or worsted type yarn. I'm not 100% sure whether I'm going to do a 2-ply or a 3-ply yet. First up, I'm going to show you the fibres that I'm going to be blending with the Angora to make the finished yarn. The main fibre that I'm going to be blending with is this Humbug Merino. This is naturally coloured merino in white and grey that has been mill blended together. So it comes like this. And what this does is it gives a really lovely heathered finish to any yarn that I want to create. So I think this is going to be lovely in this. So we have our Angora and our Humbug. The next up is another grey. It is another merino. It's quite a fine merino. And it's a very, very pale grey, but it does have a little bit of sheen to it. So I think that will be quite nice in there. Finally, I wanted to add in a little bit of colour, and I was umming and ahhing between this sort of seafoam green, which if you've watched these before, you know green's my favourite colour, or this very dusky pale pink. And I think I have decided to go with the pink just because it is more of a Eastery colour, spring colour. So those are going to be the colours that I'm going to blend together to make some rolags. So as I make the rolags, I'm not going to be too strict with what weights and what ratios I'm using. I'm just going to be layering up with using this as the main fibre or the main layers, and then adding bits of Angora and bits of these on top. And I'm pretty much going to keep going until I have used up these two, because I've got 25 grams of this very pale grey and this very pale pink, and then I'll just bob in whatever I need of these until I've made enough rolags to use up both of these. I was able to put in some footage of me rolling these Rolex. I know I didn't press record on the second lot that I did. So each board gave me 3 Rolex. They're slightly different weights. And so I've got 6 in total, and that used all of the very palest grey merino. I had a little bit more of the pink left, but that used all the grey. So obviously I couldn't make another set exactly the same, so I've kept it at these 6. So what I need to do now is to weigh and see how much yarn I've got. Okay, so I've only got about 70 grams there. So yardage wise, yeah, I've only got about 70 grams there. I would have liked to have had 100 grams. Let's see how much we need for yardage. So while that boots up, I'm just going to split these into piles of similar weights. So that one is 12. The skinny one. So that's 34. And that's 33. That's close enough as far as I'm concerned. I'm not going to mess about getting those any better. So I've got 2 piles. Just want to make sure I'm actually going to have enough yarn. If I wanted these to spread them a little bit further, what I could do is just spin all of this on one bobbin and then spin the humbug on another bobbin and ply those together. But I would prefer to keep it all this. Plus, so these feel incredible. I know there's not much of that Angora in there, but you can really tell it in the way they feel. Yeah, we might be a bit tight on yardage. It does say 70 to 100 grams, or like 200 meters, 240 yards. I'm going to spin them and we'll see how we go on. Right, so this is my setup for spinning the Rolex. I'm using Joyce, which is the Ashford Kiwi. I've got it on the smallest whirl because I want a nice fast spin, and I've got it on the largest groove on here, which gives me the highest spin ratio and the fastest spin I can get. I'm going to try to spin quite fine. Don't know how we're going to get on with that, but we'll try it. Then I have very little tension, but I probably even want a bit less on my brake band. So yeah, let's give this a go. project. So I have finished the spin for the slippers, the Angora slippers, and what I ended up deciding to do was, because I'd split the Rolags to make a 2-ply, but I knew a 2-ply was going to be too thin, I ended up making some more Rolags, and even though I didn't have quite the right colours, I've added in a slightly different pink and a slightly different grey. I think when these are all blended together, they're going to look absolutely fine. So the next job is to ply these, and I'm going to do a traditional 3-ply. And the reason I wanted to go for a traditional 3-ply instead of a chain ply, this is quite an uneven spin with it being from Rolags. There are thick and thin points, and if I'd have done a chain ply, there would be that inconsistency would then go into the finished yarn, so that there would be areas where it was really thin and areas where it was thicker, because you're plying back the same area of single yarn on itself. With a traditional 3-ply where you've got 3 different bobbins, it's not necessarily going to line up which has got a thin bit on and which hasn't, and with it being 3, it should even out. The plan is to ply this fairly loosely. I'm going to see how that goes, see what it wants to do, because I have a feeling that the Angora is going to fluff up slightly, so this should then give me the DK weight that I want for the slippers, because at the minute it's in places incredibly fine. It's also, when it, because of that short staple length, if this loses its twist, it breaks. But yeah, it's very fine in places. It was a very enjoyable spin though. One of the most enjoyable spins I've done with Rolags. I'm not the biggest fan of Rolags. But yeah, let's go see how this plies up and how much yarn I end up with. have our finished yarn for the slippers. It's quite an uneven spin, as you can see, and that's partly the fibre preparation, the Rolags, and partly the fact that the Angora slightly clumped in some places. It is absolutely fine. I don't know if you can hear the bird chirping outside, it's very loud. That is just the joy of hand spun though. These will have a little bit of texture in them, which will be really nice. So the overall colour I got is mainly grey with a very tiny hint of pink. I actually really love this colour. I think it's lovely. The whiter bits that are coming through, that is the Angora. And it does have a bit of a halo to it. So it's got a bit of floof to it. So yeah, so this is our finished yarn. This should just have enough yardage. I did consider adding a commercial mohair to it to bulk up the thickness of the yarn, because it's pretty much a light DK sport weight and I needed a DK. But because it's thick and thin, I think we can get away with it. And also, if you add mohair to slippers, it can make them the bases of the slippers really slippy, and I don't want that. I have steep stairs in this house and I don't want to fall down them. But yeah, so I am going to cake this up and cast on. That's how many stitches cast on. So all I've got to do is just knit and garter stitch for a while. So that calls for a sit and a knit and a film, I think. Basically the pattern. You've done this little bit of garter flat and then you're knitting in the round until you want to do the toe decreases, and toe decreases are very similar to just a sock. There's no Kitchener at the end though, which is always a bonus. And yeah, I don't know if you can see how this is knitting up. It's quite a uneven gauge. It's not an uneven gauge, it's an uneven texture. But I don't hate it by any means. I think it's lovely. If anything, it's the gauge is a bit loose, and I would be tempted to go down a needle size. And I can't 100% decide because, one, I have loads of the yarn. I did not need to worry about that at all. I think the yardage given in the pattern is just for a 100-gram ball of DK, and I know for a fact that I don't need a 100-gram ball of DK to make full socks. So making slippers, I could make 2 out of a 100-gram ball. But what I'm tempted to do is finish this one off. I'm nearly there with it. This is I've got my sock ruler. This is my homemade one. I also have a one by Yarnistry, which is a sort of plastic one. But to be honest, I like my handmade one because I've marked on it where my sock goes. So even being generous with the amount I'm going to mattress stitch, I'm already nearly where I want to be starting the toe, because with it being garter on the heel portion, I want these to fit on my foot with negative ease rather than positive ease. So I do want them to be on the stretch slightly. So to be honest, I think I'm nearly where I want to be starting the toe. And what I'm tempted to do is just do a couple more rounds, bob the toe on, see how they fit, and if they are too loose, I'm going to go down to a 3.5mm needle and knit another one in that, and then, yeah, it means I'll have 3. But I can always pull this one out if I'm short of yarn, but I don't think I will be. It's been so quick to knit. Barely taken any time. I've hardly even recorded any of it because it's barely taken any time. But I don't know if you can see that there's a drape to this fabric, even in garter, that is just beautiful. And that is the Angora. That's not the merino, that's the Angora in the fabric that's creating this beautiful drape. So I don't think they'll hold up very well as slippers, but they're going to be very comfy. But yeah, I'm going to do a couple more rows and then put the toe in. So this pattern is really intuitive if you've knit socks, and the problem with that is that the problem I found with that is that I just read one line and think, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing, and just crack on. The toe decreases are not quite sock decreases. She actually gets you to decrease in the middle as well, so it becomes more of a sort of gathered toe, which obviously I haven't done. I've done very much a wedge sock toe. As I've said before, I am considering just re-knitting another pair if these don't fit very well. I'm just gonna gather those stitches together. So yeah, I'll try it on, but I think that the fit wise that's going to be absolutely fine. So am I going to go down stitch gauge? If I go down stitch gauge, it will everything will be a bit tighter together. I can still make it to the same size. It's not going to end up being smaller. It'll be smaller this way. Don't know. Back in a mo. My foot's going to get attacked by a cat, and excuse the darned socks. Actually, the fit on those is rather lovely. Yeah. But it is a bit loosey-goosey. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna start again. I'm gonna go down a needle size. I'm gonna go down to 3.5mm. I'm gonna go up a size in the pattern. So I was making the medium, I'm gonna make the large. So that'll keep this width the same. I think there's only a couple of stitches different, which would be perfect. And I'm gonna knit it to the same length because that fit is great. And all it will then do is just give me a denser fabric, because these are slippers and I want a denser fabric. But they fit lovely, really nice. slipper 2 finished. Starting to fluff up loads more as I knit it. It's really lovely. So I'm going to leave it till morning to finish these off, and then I can get the video uploaded, and it should be up tomorrow, so you'll hopefully get to see it too. Well, it looks like everybody wants to settle down, so I think it's time to put on a film and knit this third slipper. Yeah, I think it's time to put on a film and knit this final slipper. I've just finished editing the first half of this video right up until the knitting section, so that's all ready to go. So I just need to finish doing the knitting now, and then this should hopefully be up later tomorrow. There we go, that's our finished slipper, and I'll just compare it to the first one I made, and obviously it's going to be the same size because I knit the slightly larger size in this gauge, but the fabric is denser, so this is a lot looser than this is. This is nice and firm. This is still quite nice and drapey, but not quite as much as this one. It's just got more substance to it, but other than that the size is exactly the same because I knit them to the same length, the cuff to the same length, but I went up the size for this, so what I was going to lose in width by going down gauge I've compensated for. So yeah, so here are our little finished slippers. You can see the texture in the yarn, it's really pretty. It gives it a really sort of heathered look. And I thought just to finish these off, because they are made of bunny fibre, I thought we could turn them into little bunny slippers. So I have made a couple of pom-poms using a small pom-pom maker and some of the leftover yarn, and I'm going to stick those, well, I'm going to sew them onto the back of the slippers to make like little fluffy bunny tails. I thought that'd be really cute. So that's what I'm just going to finish off with now. Thank you for watching this Easter special of Spin to Knit, where we've been spinning with bunny fibre for Angora fibre. And yeah, this is our finished pair of slippers, house slippers. I'm so pleased with them. They are incredibly comfy, incredibly soft, and the more I touch these, the fluffier I get. I made a blend of the Angora fibre with merino to try spinning it for the first time, because I'd never spun it before, and that's what I heard was the best way to do. And actually, I'm really pleased with the yarn I got and the finished fabric that I got on these. These are so comfy, and they're just, every time I touch them, I think they get more and more fluffy. I love my little pom-poms. The pattern is, as it says, very simple. I ended up knitting 3, and pretty much the pattern is now stuck in my head. I could knit loads more of these. Did get a little bit tired of it after the 3rd one, but yeah, after a bit of a break, I'm definitely seeing myself knitting more of this pattern, because I think they'd just make such lovely gifts with like a handmade soap or a candle, just like a self-care gift. I think they'd just be perfect. The Angora fibre added in with the merino just adds to that luxury feel of these. They really do feel expensive. That's what they feel. They feel really expensive. I'm just so pleased with these. But these are for me, and I will be wearing them around the house. I feel like I'm clapping. But I'm going to leave it there for today. Please do give this video a like if you have enjoyed it, and consider subscribing. I will be back in a few weeks with the next Spin to Knit video, where I will be using the Electric Eel Wheel Nano, which is a small but mighty spinning wheel. And the first spinning wheel I ever got, that's what I learned to spin on, is the Nano. So I'm really excited about that episode. It will be coming out in a few weeks. But for now, I'm just going to leave you with some footage of me prancing around in my new slippers. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Take care, my friends. Goodbye.